What happens when your peaceful sanctuary turns into a disaster zone? Well, let me tell you, when our garage caught on fire, it threw us for a loop. But we survived, and I'm here to share with you the good and the bad so that you know how to handle it. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Let me know in the comments. The day our garage caught on fire is a day I will never forget. We were having the gender reveal for our very first grandchild. Our whole family was here, and I had just come home from the grocery store, come into the garage, closed the door, and was putting things away when I noticed that there was smoke coming from the garage through the door into the house. And of course, my initial response was panic, and I did something you are told never to do. I immediately opened the door from our house into the garage to see what was happening, and of course, all I saw were flames. And so you never know how you're going to react in these situations. My initial reaction, not good. So I immediately slammed the door, went and grabbed my husband. We got everyone out of the house, which included newborn kittens that had just been born a couple days before. And to say that it was a shit show is not an exaggeration. Luckily, one of our kids had the right mind to call the fire department, and that process ensued. The funny thing is, I consider myself a very cool, calm, and collected person when there are situations that happen, like emergency situations, but I don't know what it was. And you just don't know how you're going to react until you are in that situation. So luckily we got everybody out. The fire department showed up, but that process of the fire department showing up is ugly. There is no other way to explain it. Even though by the time they got here, the fire had put itself out, they still take a chainsaw, saw open your garage doors. Everything is soggy and wet. The soot is everywhere, even inside the house, even though the fire didn't get inside the house. So that process in and of itself, trying to look at your items after they've been completely destroyed, really is a nightmare. So once the fire department had done their thing, fire was out, they packed up, they went home. We had this gaping hole in our garage, which of course leaves you feeling very exposed to everyone and everything in the neighborhood. And not to mention, we had neighbors that were coming from down the street, like it was a zoo enclosure, checking to see what was going on. We even had a couple of neighbors who had friends over. Those friends decided that it was a good idea to just wander into our garage to see what had happened. It felt very violating, and that was just the beginning. Then we started getting all of the phone calls from companies who somehow found out that we had had a fire at our house. We were getting knocks on our door at all hours of the night from these same companies trying to get our business. And all the while, even though I'm in real estate during this time, I was freaked out. I was definitely not in my right mind. I should have had someone that I trust in the industry to help walk me through this disaster, because you're definitely not seeing things straight when something like this happens, and you need an advocate. One of the mistakes that we made, besides catching the garage on fire, was that we hired the first people that came to our door. So the people that the fire department called to actually board up our garage door, We were so shook that we hired them. We didn't do any type of research on their company. We didn't look at their reviews. We didn't call anyone else to give us a bid of any kind. That was a huge mistake. And then the other thing that we didn't even consider was what we actually had in our garage. There was no inventory of the items that we were storing. There were some really kind of priceless things that we had from like when our kids were small, ornaments that they had made, just different things that we didn't even realize were in the garage at that time. So there are a couple things that you really should do prior to moving into your home or when you're even unpacking. Keep photos of everything, of where you're putting it. Luckily, ours was in the garage. If it had been in the house, that would have been a whole nother story. So make sure that whatever it is, that you have photos, more photos than you think that you're going to need, because you're not going to remember what you have where when something traumatic takes place. And a pro tip that we learned the hard way is to check your insurance policies. We learned with our insurance that the homeowner's insurance did not cover our vehicles. Even though the vehicles were in the garage, we had to file separate homeowner's insurance claims for the actual house, and then we had to file vehicle claims for the vehicles that we had in the garage. So not only are you faced with all of these issues, but now you're putting out twice the amount in deductibles to get everything fixed. Hey there, I'm Eileen Guilbeault, your go-to real estate advisor for all things relocating to Las Vegas. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that little bell so you're notified every time a new video uploads. Let's keep going. One of the really important lessons that we learned through this process is to pay attention to your homeowner's insurance policy. So not only the difference between fixing things that have wheels, which falls under your vehicle policy, but also, does your homeowner's insurance policy cover anything like a home rental if you need to move out of your home for repairs to be made? Does it cover food? What else does that policy cover? Because you may not have as much coverage as you think. So you want to, every single year, take a look at that homeowner's insurance policy to make sure that your deductibles are up to date, that your coverages are up to date, so that you don't get caught off guard if you ever do have a situation like we had. Even though the emotional toll when we first started this process was really heightened just due to the fear of what was happening, we were so fortunate that everyone in our family, including our animals, were safe. And so that's kind of what we focused on. Now, the rest of the aftermath, it took about 6 months for our home to get put back together, even though the fire did not get inside our property. So just also keep that in mind, that if something like this does happen, it's not going to be a quick fix. You're going to need time, and each step of the way, dealing with the vendors that we had, that added to the trauma itself, but it's allowed me to share that experience with you. And I'm just laying out all my feelings in this video because fire extinguishers, we had them. Did we think to use them? No, Because when the panic sets in, if you haven't practiced that plan of what an emergency plan looks like with your family, then you may not think to use them either. So make sure that if you have that emergency plan, that you're maybe walking yourself and your kids through that process every once in a while, just so that everyone is on the same page. And that you check those fire extinguishers because they do expire. One more thing that everyone hates is smoke detectors. And the reason I'm saying that you hate them is because the batteries that are the backup power for those smoke detectors always goes off at the same time, right? 2 o'clock in the morning when everyone is sleeping. And now you're running around the house hunting for the one smoke detector that has a battery that needs to be replaced. So, pro tip, every January 1, replace every single battery in all your smoke detectors throughout the house. That way, there's no chance of a random one going off in the middle of the night, because you want to make sure that you keep those ready so that if something happens, they are online. Because I have walked into many homes to show where people are annoyed, so they just rip the battery out of them so that they'll stop beeping. Well, in a fire, that is not going to help anyone. So January 1, change every battery. Okay, now this pro tip might be the most important one that I am going to tell you, besides taking photos of everything. If your family is like mine, we have trust documents. Everything in those documents says not only do we want life support if that happens, it's a living will, it's which of our kids gets what, it's who gets the house. I mean, it's all of this encompassed in one document. But it's paper. It's in a safe, but if the fire is hot enough, the safe can actually get destroyed. So do you have those files backed up digitally so that they're in the cloud and you have access to them if something were to happen? And if something happens to you, do you have someone that has access to that information so that they can be advocates on your behalf? That is a huge problem that I see with many of my clients, is they haven't either updated their beneficiaries, they don't have their trust documents, or something else is keeping them from being able to have their final wishes followed through with. So make sure that you have people that are aware of what your wishes are and that you have digital backups of all of those documents. Do you need more real estate tips or relocation advice? Make sure to watch one of the videos on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you the next time.